round table.
And then you go back to the website.
But we do it slightly differently. Because we've got a sort of a front table of some subject matter experts.
It's a Chinese version, and they've printed like the streetway logo.
So that's the camera.
Stuck it on the side and then put the
And that's what's...
Oh, that's okay. It's a bit interesting. Look over your shoulder for folk.
Cool. Okay, we might get underway. Thanks for coming along on a slightly more crappy night. At least it's not raining much.
Hey, at least it's warm.
It's warm. It's definitely warm. Has warmed up. So thank you. This is our forum night. It is about contesting. We had a bit of a discussion in the committee last night about running this a little bit differently, in that we have at the front table some subject, and I don't consider myself to be this, but some subject matter experts, as in Martin, Anne Murray and Richard, around contesting. And so we'll hear from our subject matter experts, and then we'll open it up for discussion like we do on a normal forum night. So just running it slightly different, see how it works, always open to suggestions, always open to doing it differently. So we'll see how this works, and we'll go from there. So I might open up to Martin first.
Thank you, Justin. I had no warning of being a subject expert. But what I came along with tonight was to talk about a thing called the World Radiosport Team Championship, which is held every 4 years in a country somewhere that isn't Australia, when 50 teams of 2 people are chosen from around the world to go to one place and compete in an HF contest. And the idea is that when you go there, they provide a fairly level playing field. Now, when I went in 1996, it was in San Francisco, and we were allocated to various people's normal houses with their normal beam and whatever. And there was definitely a disparity in how good the stations were. That didn't affect the fact that we came down the bottom, but it was something that worried the people that were fighting to get up to the top. So in more recent ones, they've started to do it field day style. So they set up a tent in the middle of a field, and they set up a standard mast with a standard beam and a standard dipole for 40 metres, and that's your station. You're limited to 100 watts, CW and phone, and it's in the IARU contest. It's co-joint with that, but it doesn't take the full period. It's got a limited period within that. And the great thing for me was just meeting up with all these guys I'd been contesting with for years, and only knew as a voice and a call sign, and you go there and you meet them, and you find all those interesting things, like the guy with the Al Jolson voice is actually a short little fella, and you know, all these peculiarities we have of human beings. And it was fantastic from that point of view. The whole setup was just fun. Now since then it's been run, because this was back in 1996. This was at the time when I really was good at contesting. So Seattle was the first one, then San Fran was the second. Then they went to Slovenia, Finland, Brazil, Russia, back in the US Northeast, Germany, Italy, and the next one's in the UK in 2026. So I think from about Russia onwards was when they started to do this field day type setup, and they're doing that again for the UK. Very expensive to do, so they have to do a lot of fundraising. Now to qualify to go, there are teams allocated around to countries in the world depending on their number of contesters entering contests. So being Australia, New Zealand, we get one. So zone 29, 30 and 32 is just available for one team. Whereas say you go to Scandinavia, might have 4 teams. Northeast of the US might have 3 or 4. So if you go to the websites, it's all there, it's laying it out. The next one for England, the qualification is what your score from 8 out of 15 contests, which are like the CQ Worldwide, CQ WPX and whatever. And you pick your 8 best scores and you submit those scores, and if you're good enough you get to go. Now I've not done that since I went to 96 because there's only one possibility for Australia, and I'll give somebody else a go. Don't want to hog it, which I could have done for 2 or 3 years, I suppose. I couldn't now. And I think I got a thing in the mail the other day from somebody in Germany that said, I'm now number 3,432 in the world for contesting. Okay. Whereas here I was probably pretty close to the top 100. So we got our own t-shirt, competitor t-shirt, and they made a film. So if you'd like to show, just show the entry, and then, as I say, back down to about 12 minutes.
I'm clicking it. Why is it not? Oh, there we go.
CQ contest, Whiskey 6 Zulu. Kilo Delta 9, Charlie November 5906. Yes, RQRZ, Whiskey 6 Zulu. K6 Zulu. Kilo 6 Zilla. Phonetics.
That was why I got it.
Hello, I'm Mike Gallagher. The San Francisco Bay Area is home to many great things. But for one weekend in July of 1996, the Northern California Contesters Club brought to town some of the best ham radio operators in the world, all to determine who would win the gold, the silver, and the bronze. And when it was all over, they would crown a new world champion. So for the next several minutes, sit back and enjoy as we feature some of the best ham radio operators in the world.
About 12 and 13.
Last night,
Okay, let's just zoom to about there. Okay.
K6 Zulu. Kilo 6 Zilla. Phonetics. The sheer magnitude of people out there. It's amazing as long as they're around the world.
Emanuele, Salona, você já trabalhou de carteira?
CQ contest, Whiskey 6 Zulu, Whiskey 6 Zulu, contest. CQ contest, Whiskey 6 Zulu. Kilo Delta 9, Charlie November 5906. Yes, RQRZ, Whiskey 6 Zulu. And 7RO 5906.
It's more pilot at all.
It's a very close shot of the moustache.
Still there?
Yeah.
Still there. Yeah, so there were 2-man teams. I had with me VK2AYD, David, who I selected, because I'd been chosen as team captain, and then I could choose my partner. And at that time, my voice skills were excellent. My CW skills were pitiful. And David was really, really good CW operator. So we meshed very well. And we came right in the bottom 10. Somewhere in the bottom 10, I can't remember where, but somewhere in the bottom 10.
It's at the end of the video.
Is it? Well, we don't need to look at that. Some people have got no sensitivity whatsoever.
But if people want to see
it actually is quite interesting that if you look at it, there's been a number of us VK4EMM and VK4XY went to Slovenia, VK2IA and VK6LW went to Russia, and there's been a couple of ZLs as well, and all of us were in the bottom portion. And the main reason for that is that you don't get any practice here in doing the contest style that you need to use for that particular contest. In that contest, you need to do a lot of passing of people from one operator to the other. So that you'll have one guy on 15, one guy on 20, the guy on 20 works the multiplier, he gets him to come up on 15. And it's a real skill to pass people backward and forward, and it's something we just don't get to practice here. Mainly because in the day I was doing this, it was very rare for us to get two bands open at the same time. I used to do 2 radio contesting, which meant, I was listening on one ear to one radio, the other ear to the other radio, and I could pass people backward and forward, but no, we weren't used to doing what they were used to doing over there. They practice with a thing called a sprint contest, and sprints are just unique. First of all, when you call CQ, station answers, and then you work them, and then it's your frequency. He has to move.
Yeah.
And one of the exchanges is you give a name, and when you receive the name, that's then your name, and you pass that to the next guy. Well, you can imagine, can't you, how many people have Ebenezer or Ashkenazi or something as their name, and if you get it wrong, you lose a lot of points along the way. Anyway, that's my story about WRTC. You can get into it. All you got to do is just enter a lot of contests and get a reasonable score.
Cool. Any questions for Martin?
There would be a lot of money involved in setting up a station to work multiple bands without interfering with each other and setting up like that.
Yeah, it's got increasingly sophisticated. It's now at the point where K3LR and W3LPL, the big multis in America, K3LR has 10 ICOM 7851s. Now they sell here currently for $22,000. Okay? And there's 2 to each position, and they can operate 2 signals within the same band. So they can have 2 signals in 20 meters working people at the same time.
And big power.
At the same time.
How does that work?
Sorry?
How does that work?
How does that work?
Yeah. Doesn't one wipe the other out?
Firstly, you've got very, very good antennas separated by quite a distance. You've got very good screen cable and earthing and all that sort of good stuff. And you've got filters that are used that are frequency dependent. So it's a lot of very sophisticated engineering to do it.
Wow.
I've got a little bit of it, but not that sophisticated. And I used to use it when I was doing the 2, 1 in each ear. So I had filters so that I didn't interfere. I wasn't blasting out in the other ear when I was CQing on that one. Yeah, so it is possible. It's all very possible. Just whether you're willing to do the engineering to do it.
So Martin, I take it that you're not doing SO2R anymore.
No.
Oh, you still do some of that?
I never did SO2R on CW.
Yep. Okay.
Just too hard. I've seen guys do it on CW, but they're the type of guys that learnt CW when they were 5 years old, and it's just another language. Yeah. But I don't do it now because it's not necessary. I just contest for fun.
Yeah.
Can you explain what SO2R is?
Single operator, 2 radio.
Okay.
In fact, at some of the time in the past, I was operating single operator 4 radio because I'd have other radios listening to see whether the band opened or not. But yeah, they weren't doing anything sophisticated. They were just listening for the signals of the band. Nowadays, you have spectrum scopes and things to do that for you.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions for Martin before we move on? Cool. What we might do is get our VHF, UHF and above masters to tell us all about their contesting experience.
Well, HF contest experience is very, very limited. So we probably won't talk about that. I think our first actual try at HF was a multi station with about 5 of us at Penstock Lagoon many years ago, and we got maybe 400 contacts between the whole lot of us for the whole contest.
I'm somewhat frustrated at the fact that we had a particularly good noise floor and everybody else didn't.
Ah, yes. But so I wouldn't say HF was particularly successful contesting pastime for me. However, had a lot of fun doing things like the RD where there is VHF, UHF involved. And Richard and I have a field day van that we do the field days, and always to try and achieve something cool for the day. Doesn't always happen.
Emphasis on cool.
Yeah.
Top of the mountain.
Oh no.
We have a heater.
Yeah.
We have a standby.
We do.
I'm joking.
Anyone who's ever been into my office at work will know why it's nicknamed Vanuatu. I do not like to be cold, so there is always a heater. So your single operator 2 radio, we have the single operator 17 radio system set up for VHF, UHF, because for all the bands. It's a little bit tricky, I suppose. The thing that annoys us most is that a number of our transverters have the same IF, and so you're continually turning radios down when you transmit on another one, or you get interference. And it's a much, obviously, especially here in VK7, there's a lot less people to talk to, so it's not frantic like a HF contest where you've continually got people to talk to. Some field day this time was amazing. 6 metres was just open to everywhere. We worked, I think, pretty much every state in Australia, a number of places in New Zealand, and one lone contact layoff in Samoa.
Oh, yes.
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 You worked in too.
Yes. It's going to come out of nowhere.
And he was like 20 over 9.
Extras.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Correct.
And
then not there. It was
no,
6
but he
metres
worked
away.
like a dozen people. I was listening to him working other people in the contest, and then So it's a lot of fun. 6 metres is interesting. I think one of my earlier efforts on 6 metres that I'm really proud of was working mobile from the car, not with a beam, just with the 2 metre 5/8 as a quarter wave on 6 metres, barefoot from the FT817, so 5 watts.
There you go.
And I got a contact I got a VK4 contact. I thought that's pretty cool. And then when the log came in, it was the longest confirmed contact for the contest, and he wasn't in Brisbane, he was in like Townsville or something, I can't remember. It was a long way north. I'm like, That was a really long contact for 5 watts and no antenna. Yeah. So it's pretty interesting. I think we've got every band except for 6 centimetres between 10 and...
So as this count, we had 7 bands, so we had 7 radios
Yeah.
that can all interfere with one another
Yeah. So
on an audio level.
yeah.
But
And an
voice
IF
console?
level. And an IF level. Yeah.
But we've had some pretty good contacts on the microwave bands in sort of Launceston. The guys go portable up there, so we normally work
Yeah, that's a guarantee.
guys up north, sort of on 10 gigs, 3.4 gigs, 2.4 gigs, with really good signals.
Look, the guys in the north of the state often work across Bass Strait. That's very, but it's very difficult from down here. We have a lot of dirt in the way. So we're always excited to get a few mainland contacts, and not on a field day, and not in a competition, but we have all worked ZL on 2 metres and 70 centimetres, which is also very cool.
1296 and 10 gigs.
What about some of the contest day sort of techniques that you use?
Well, look, I have, after listening to my learning colleague present on this once before, I went home and built a magic switch box to do the left ear, right ear, both ears, transmit the whole bit for 2 radios. It takes a lot more practice than I have time. After about an hour and a half, I just gave up on the second radio. It's like, nah. I'm losing more context than I'm gaining by doing that. It's something you need to practice a lot to do, I feel.
And you have to know when to turn the other one off.
Yeah.
Shut it up, because it's distracting you.
So I still have the box, and I do sometimes use it to go between VHF and UHF. I have a switch box which switches IF, so that I can just run one radio on IF and switch between many of the microwave bands. So sometimes I'll just use that switch box to go between HF and VHF without changing plugs and things, but I don't use it for its intended purpose. Yeah, so I think I don't know. I don't really consider myself a subject matter expert on contesting, but it's just something I do to amuse myself from time to time.
I think persistence is a thing. Like, again, I wouldn't put myself into having any more skill than anyone else, but I'm just a bit of a sort of get sucked in. If you're going to do something, you want to give it 100%. So if it means, I remember some of Martin's famous words of bum time on seat, and that's the only way to sort of get contacts is sort of don't think, I might just get up and have a stretch and have a bit of a walk around and go and have a coffee and sort of come back. It's like, yeah.
You're not calling CQ.
Might have a quick snooze, you mean?
Yeah.
That turns into a
snooze.
few hours.
I don't normally snooze. I think I might have.
Yeah, I never make a 24-hour contest without a snooze. And Richard is the most persistent person. He's the bar I always try and meet. And on the odd occasion that I get past Richard, I'm very proud of myself inside. But no, it's just a bit of fun.
I think you learn little things along the way. I reckon one of the biggest improvements that I made was getting a foot switch and a headset and boom mic. Oh my lordy dordy, that just makes so much difference.
Yes.
If you've got your rig hooked up to the logging software, it's on the right band. As long as it's always worth paying attention that VKC or an Omni rig haven't had a bit of a moment and gone off into fairyland and you've logged a heap of contacts on the wrong band. But it's really good. You can just sit there with your hands on the keyboard, push to talk. Although sometimes your brain overtakes and you actually, while you're typing it in, you've still got your foot on. So, but it makes it way easier than holding a mic and typing one-handed.
No, agreed. Boom mic and foot switch do definitely make.
The Heil headsets have got that cool where you can flick the ears out of phase too, which can make a significant amount of difference to sometimes hearing a voice, hearing a number. But
I think the other thing that I'd probably mention about contesting is if you're going to have a go, preparation is everything. Getting 5 minutes in and realising that one of your antennas is not working. Yeah. It's like, if you waste an hour trying to fix an antenna, you're gone. It's all over.
So how long's prep for you guys?
Well, that depends if I'm portable or not.
Okay.
So if I was going to say do the RD contest from the club, which I have before, I will take Thursday and Friday off.
To set up.
Set up.
Yep.
Yep. Make sure all the reeds are the right length, because there's antennas that I would, I set up a vertical antenna out here on the ground plane. Make sure everything's tuned, make sure everything's working, and obviously setting up all the microwave stuff and the IF stuff. There's a lot of gear to set up and test and make sure it works. So.
And time to fix if something doesn't work.
Yeah, and you have to have lots of time to troubleshoot and work out what's going on. So, if I'd been prepared, I'd have brought a couple of photos of maybe the microwave dish on the back of the 10 gig one that I needed to keep out of the rain, and I put inside a box and put on the back of the ute and strapped it down.
Worked as a treat.
If it works, it's not silly.
Correct.
I had those dishes downstairs, remember? So
I'm going to get that
legs
printed
dangling
on a
out the window
shirt.
down
Yeah.
there.
I'm going to get that printed on a shirt for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. If it works, it's not silly.
Yeah. So yeah, lots of things. So for something like that, if you're going portable, if I'm at home, then I'll try and do that prep over a couple of weeks and just make sure everything's as it should
I
be.
think having snacks too is good.
Well, not 2 weeks of effort, Paul, but 2 weeks of Sundays, just making
The
sure.
number of times that you've said to me, "Oh, it's 11 o'clock, time to start panicking."
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I love it. And you're taking time off.
On the back of the chute.
For the RD, I take the Friday and the Monday.
Yeah.
Friday's the prep.
Yeah, Monday's the recovery.
Because I don't know about you, but
I have done that before. Yes.
I can't do 24 hours without a recovery day.
As you
Well,
get older,
you
it
will
gets
note
tough.
that I have like a 2-hour kip in the middle of it, which means I can
Yes.
probably work the Monday. I never do that. I mean, that contest is in like blocks. Well, not blocks, but it's in rework time. So you can usually work all the people you can sort of listen to in the middle of the night and find a bit of a gap
But
and
that's
not lose too many points.
That's a technique. See, this is, when I thought about it, that's an RD technique.
Yeah.
Doesn't
because-
apply to most contests.
Don't work them at 5 to 1, wait
As-
till 5 past.
No, correct. And as soon as you've worked everybody on VHF and UHF, you're
Yeah.
on HF.
HF.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
back to HF.
And don't stop until VKCL
Correct.
pops up and goes, oh, you can work VK7.
You can rework these people, so you're back to VHF, UHF, then you're back to HF.
Yeah. There'll be
And
no
if you
stop.
run out of contacts, you go to another band.
Yeah, most
Just
most contests don't have that many bands.
no.
So it's a pretty unique sort of
Yeah.
one off that.
Okay.
But it's the one operator 17 radio scenario again, because if you're running everything from 160 through to 10 gigs, and I think about the only thing we don't have is 6 centimetres on that whole.
Which we're working on.
Yeah,
We're all working on. Yeah.
there's a lot of radios going, and it's.
Oh no, correct. And you've got to know what you're doing. You've got to have your wits about
We've
you.
also now introduced the issue of having to do things like GPS lock radios and transverters, which we sort of haven't done in the past, but we've had a few issues. So now we're now GPS locking all the
As many as we can
lightwave radios
on the high
IFs.
bands. So you don't have missed contacts because you drifted off frequency and people are calling you.
I was thinking back to when I was at university and we used to do VHF from the top of a mountain in Wales, and our tunable IFs were EC10s.
Valves.
And
The blank look was because I had no idea what you were talking
it's an
about.
little Eddystone transistor receiver, and you had to be very quick transmitting, otherwise you'd lost the signal because it had drifted out of the passband of the radio. So you operated with your hand on the knob continuously and hope it kept drifting in the same direction.
It's like you were leading a hunting shot.
Yeah.
You were leading your rifle ahead of the beast.
No, that was when we were trying to work Manchester. We had a rope on the end of the array, which was a 4-bay of, I think there were 8 element 2 metre Yagis. And the rope on the front of that, and you pulled that down to bring the lobe down low enough to work Manchester from the top of the mountain.
Oh,
I love it. Good local knowledge.
Oh yeah, there were a lot of tricks of the trade in that game. Sorry?
Yeah.
yes.
Has anybody ever used the logging software and put two separate instances of it and then combine the logs?
Hell no.
So
With a multi-station, you can. With a multi-station, we have in the past. I think it was.
No, we used,
I think maybe Hayden and I had the database on one computer, and we both networked, and were able to add contacts to the
to
same
the same
log.
database?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking if you had a situation where you don't have a shack in the box, you have
Electric car out there?
one UH, like for the RD, your HF and your UHF, VHF are separate boxes.
Yeah.
Sure, no.
Omni-Rig will talk to two radios.
Right, there you go.
So if you've got like a shack in a box and you've got cat control, and it's normally pretty good, but you do have to keep an eye on it because otherwise it'll stitch you up really
Well,
bad.
with the 991A, everything's right there. So I was fine with that, but I was thinking this year, using the Hermes and like the 7800.
Yeah, it won't matter, Paul, because at the end of the day, like the Cabrillo log that it outputs, it's just a text file.
Yeah.
So you can just copy and paste one on over
Yeah.
the other
The
one.
good thing of
you
having
do
it
need
obviously
to keep your, oh well, with the RD of course you don't give sequential numbers, so
Yeah.
it's pretty easy. But
Right.
with most other things, it's easier.
Oh, yeah.
It's easier if you have to keep those numbers sequential. Plug both radios in, or on the logging software, you just have to remember to go from rig to manual when you go onto those other bands. Now, this is for me going from HF to all
I've
my.
got one radio that's got cat control, so I've only got one radio on Omni-Rig, and all the other radios are just manually operated. So I still only run one log, and I just switch between auto and manual modes according to where I am.
Right, yeah.
And a technique is I set the logging software and then I go to that band and I religiously, because I don't
VKCL, you need to, before you even start the contest, fire it up, set it all up, go to the first band, click on FM. Click on the next band, go to FM, click on the next band, go to FM.
VKCL defaults to single sideband on everything.
And you've logged a heap of contacts and they're not green and you go...
Colour is your friend.
Colour is your friend. Yeah.
Green is
Green is
FM.
Yep.
But if you don't have Omni-Rig, and I've had some bad experiences, so I don't use it.
Yep.
You change VKCL, then you go to that band, and I do that religiously.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And I don't try and make the contact. Even if somebody's calling me, I will change VKCL and then do it on the radio, and then actually make the contact.
So it might be interesting to know though that when you export your Cabrillo log, whether it's sideband or FM, it just exports it as phone. So it really doesn't matter whether you're logging it
Depending
as...
on the contest, I think.
On the contest, true.
It's
The
still
contest,
worth-
the contest doesn't differentiate. It does. It just exports it as
And it doesn't, it just says 7 megs or 14 megs or whatever. It
Oh
doesn't.
no, it actually has the actual frequency if you've got Omni-Rig. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. The actual frequency in which it's available.
Fire, check the lab then.
I'm interested to ask the three of you, or even the four of you, about automation. And I'm talking about like when you're... Hey guys,
Yeah.
when you're calling CQ, like the difference from previously to last year for me, where I set up voice keying and CW keying, so that I wasn't going CQ, you know, VK7ZH, RD, like, because your throat just goes dead, and my radio doesn't do voice keying, and so the logging software I was using, like, that had voice
Oh,
keying,
nice.
and it just made the world of difference, like, as you said, like having a foot switch,
Yep.
and automatic, like, that it would speak for me, or it would send my CW.
Yeah, I've got one radio that has the voice key, the 9700,
Yeah.
but for VHF it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
But for HF I ended up using, I think it's KD9 something, so it's really old software.
Mm.
You basically record the WAV files and you just have a CAT, it doesn't actually use CAT to transmit, you actually use old school, a transistor out of a COM port off a COM line like DTR or whatever, to key the rig, and then you just feed the audio in through another interface. And it works a treat, but you've just got to set up.
Okay, so I was wondering how you were doing it in VKCL if your radio doesn't support.
Yeah, just use another bit of software.
Yeah.
But you just got to use different ports, and I did run into a few issues on the 9100 that you've got to pick which input it uses for audio.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you put it on a frequency, it'll default to the data mode, and you've got to turn it off.
Yeah, okay.
The other thing you can do is you can actually buy microphones with keys in them.
All right.
Usually they only record one message, whereas on most radios you can record a number of messages.
Yeah.
And on that I just use a very basic shack in a box Yaesu 991A, and it has an accessory plug. No, it's not accessory. It's called auxiliary, I think. Plug on the back. It's just 3.5mm jack, which comes out to a little pad you buy, but it's literally just a voltage divider with resistors, so you can easily make one up.
Yeah.
And the one you buy has like 17 buttons on it. The one I made has 3 because that's all I need. And it's just like, and I just keep just program in a couple of short messages and a really long one.
Yeah.
A long one for when you're having coffee.
A long one for when it's a long time between contacts and you're not getting many contacts.
Yep.
And then the short ones for just saving your voice between the others. Yeah. You know, keying is everything.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, by the end of 24 hours, you can't talk.
I think there's a lot to be said too for
That's the recovery day.
And that depends too on the context. Like if in the Oceania DX contest, of course, you could have contacts coming in so fast you never get to use the key.
705, 7300, 9700 all have those voice keys.
7610s and
Well and truly. And that you use it.
Yeah.
The RD contest, I was using it on HF because the 705, and that's another technique. If you have multiple rigs, think about what the functionality of the rig is and what bands that benefits you on. As an example, I had the 705 because it had the waterfall with a PA on HF, and it also gave me the voice keyer. And it was the voice on HF when I was using the voice keyer the most, which is not on VHF, UHF. I had the 847 for 62 and 70 because they're all fixed frequencies. We set the frequency and I just literally channelized it.
Yep.
And on 23 I had a separate rig, and on 9 centimetres it was the 817. So yeah, think about if you've got the luxury of it, multiple rigs, and you want to run a whole bunch of frequencies, think about how best you can use it.
You've got to set volume levels too, so that when something fires up, you know where to sort of turn it down. And sometimes enough on 9 centimetres, if you know you've worked all the guys on 9 centimetres, then you turn that one down because it'll interrupt you at the most inopportune time.
Correct.
So yeah.
And have them arranged where they're easy to access. I'll give you an example. During one of the RDs, I had a 23 centimetre rig which was up high. It had a microphone that I didn't have a hook for. I put the microphone up there and it slipped off and went bang on the keyboard of my notebook, and the notebook stopped. And that was the logging software.
Oops.
So a few expletives and I went, what do I do? And has that logged that last contact? So I had to restart the PC. Now everything came back and I had logged that contact, it had done it, so that was great, but that's 5 minutes down the track.
Yep.
So it's worth having a bit of a think, and if you've got something to hook the microphone on, or if you're using a headset with the switch or whatever, that would have gotten over that problem. So
I think that if you're using the switch, it's pretty cool to be able to switch between radios and bands. But I think, like Martin said, you need to practice what it's going to look like and what it's going to sound like and what it's going to operate like. Because anything new like that, you go, oh, that's pretty cool. And someone will come up on one band, you go, oh, is it that one? No, that one, no. And then they'll disappear and you're like, which band were they on? So yeah, you need to be a bit religious and practice. So that, and different rigs sound a bit different, so you'll often know if someone's come out of one radio. But I think there's a lot to be said too for owning a frequency. In certain times of the sort of the workable cycle, like
on HF, that's and in fact Martin gave a talk on contesting a while ago, and I took away from that, yes, owning a frequency as in sitting on a particular frequency on HF and getting people to come to you. And that works, but when you've exhausted, it's the middle of the night, you've exhausted everybody on the band, you start moving. And I then started to use the technique which you were talking about, which is you never go on an even frequency for a start.
Yeah, I disagree with that.
Never go on an even frequency. And if you actually want to muscle
Sorry,
in,
when you're saying even frequency, like a whole number.
whole number,
Yeah.
well and truly, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And people these days have waterfalls, so they'll see signals pop up, and so that's one technique. But also, if there's a bunch that you actually want to break into, you start to just go next to them and nudge them a little bit, and you can usually make the contact.
Sorry, explain that.
Just go right next to them.
Yeah.
And call CQ. And
I do that when you're calling.
And
to someone
slowly
else who's
move.
calling.
I sit right next to you.
Yeah.
Flatter.
And you can grab, because of the waterfall, they'll see you come up next door, and if they're jumping around grabbing contacts,
Yep.
you'll be the next one.
Okay.
Well and truly.
And late into the night, you'll go, oh, there's that guy. Oh,
I'd just like to speak to this uneven frequency bit.
Okay.
As somebody who's spent most of their time playing with minimal radio gear, salvaged radio gear,
Channelized radio gear.
and somewhat, very used commercial gear, which has to be channelized, I've had to try and work Martin a number of times, and he's told me I'm off frequency. Like, I know, but I can't
do anything about it.
And I just keep calling off frequency enough times until he answers.
Yeah, that's probably fine for VHF where you are channelized, but
No, I was talking about HF.
what's happening on HF now is that people are trying to channelize HF. So unless you're operating on 000, they say you're off frequency. Well, I'll tell you what, there are frequencies in between those, and they're very handy. And I guess I learned a lot about this when I got the Orion transceiver, and I was able to hear signals between signals that in my other radios it had just been noise.
Yep.
But because it had got a better front end and a better filtering and so on, it was one of the early users of digital type processing, and I was able to slip in the middle there. And they'd all get upset about it because they hadn't got receivers like I got. So, well, you just say, well, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. But, there is room where you get less QRM in between those things.
And the stock standard filters in the 7300, the 9700 and the 705 and probably the others, go down to filter 3, it's really narrow. And you can actually then adjust it even narrower if you really want it. So you use that sort of stuff to your advantage.
And some of the old guys, K3ZO, who's passed away now, is one of the best I know. He never used a CW filter. All his CW contesting was done with a sideband filter. He used his ears.
Yeah.
He said, you tune it in with your ears. You're going to miss signals if you don't tune it in with your ears. Okay, I can't do it, but he could.
But that would surely only work if you've got a cracking receiver, like as in a cracking antenna that you're picking signals up, because so many of signals that I'm picking up are so quiet, and then if I've got some guy who's like thumping away, like I'm just going to miss all of those other ones, because my AGC will come right up.
Well, we're into a whole other world of stuff here. Come and have a chat at home sometime.
Yeah, right.
I'll take you through it. But
He'll explain to you how
it's
to
better
put
if you have learned how to do this with an HRO or an AR88, right? Because they had two sets of RF amplifiers in order to overcome the noise that they were generating internally in their mixers. So you had to learn to set the audio at about a comfortable level and then adjust everything with the RF gain to stop the mixers overloading. Now once you've got that technique, then it's very useful for all this AGC stuff and so on. And mostly I operate with a fast AGC and sometimes without any at all. I just use the RF gain to flick it down a bit.
This is one of the things I learned from Martin, is pulling the weak signal by turning the RF gain down. It doesn't seem intuitive.
Stick an attenuator in there.
Spot on.
Particularly on bands like 160 metres, just keep shoving in attenuation and you'll find you can hear the beggar.
So we're going to go around the room now and see whether this works. Yes. And relate your contesting wisdom.
Just trying to think. Well, probably a couple of years ago when I won the RD, that was
Who won it?
that was quite an effort, because the whole, I think that was after Martin's talk with the bum in seat thing, and that was the whole try and sit there, and of course being in August it gets still pretty cold, and shacks get cold, but the problem is if you have too much heat you start to get sleepy, so there's a fine balance between the two. So sometimes I have to turn the heater off because it gets too hot and I'm falling asleep.
Spend the weeks up to it acclimatising to nice and warm,
Oh,
and then have a heater.
So that's the other thing. After you do 24 hours straight, because I've done that a couple of times now, you do get to about 12:30, 1 o'clock when we finish, and you do sleep through till about 6 or 7. Get up, have dinner, go back to bed again.
Back in the old days, it used to finish at 6 o'clock of a night. Sunday night.
Lots of caffeine, lots of chocolate, lots of sugar to try and keep you awake. That's if you're doing the long contests. But the other thing too is, I think not everyone's who goes into a contest is in it to win it. It's like just try and improve a small part of your station every time you do it. So whether that's a new band or a new antenna or just even the way that you operate, and then just try and get those little wins to do that. Lately I've been streaming the contests as well, which according to the rules, as long as you don't self-spot, then you're okay. And that's I've noticed quite a few people have popped up and have decided to, try
and find you.
Make a few contacts themselves and get, I forgot the contest was on, so they come and make 10, 15 contacts, and that's all good. So encourages that, which is good to see. But yeah, there's a lot going on in a contest that you have to keep an eye on, like checking to make sure you're on the right band in the logging software and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, and then portable's a whole different game altogether, because you got to deal with the elements. Obviously, not everyone can have a field day van. So you got to. I remember going up to Mount Hobbs and setting up there one day, and set up, and everything was all fine. No wind, weather was all good, and then had the what is it? The off the side of the car, the awning. And had it all tied down, and then the wind, you only need the smallest amount of wind and the awning's gone, and like you got antennas that are swaying around the wind and dishes that are going to fall over, so make sure you bring plenty of weights. But yeah, that's about all I can think of.
Come on, Gary. Some wisdom.
Words of wisdom. No, I haven't got much to add to all this. Wisdom's always already been said. Yeah, it's just one of those things. Preparation, and make sure you got the best that you can afford to get set up with. Same as a field day or anything like that. Just make sure everything's hunky dory and well tested out, and use phonetics so that you can get your exchanges done in one hit without wasting time. And that's probably that's a fairly important thing, is just not waste as much time trying to do an exchange. So that's about me. I can't really add to everything that's been said here, because they're all get a lot bigger scores than me on the day, so they're obviously putting in a lot more time and a lot more hard work. But yeah, it's all good fun. Contest's coming up pretty soon, so a couple of weeks I think. So there's one there to have a go at, the low band one. So that's 80, 40 and 160. So yeah, get your antennas up.
Thank you. So one of the things you can do is listen to other people contesting, develop your skills by listening to other people. So for the last 50 years of my life, I've been listening to Martin contesting.
Great teacher.
So it wasn't, it shouldn't be that much of a surprise to know that the first time I went in for the ALARA contest, I won it. This was a 2021. I've done other ALARA contests since then.
Much more classy trophies.
Yeah, well, it's actually classier than this. It came on a piece of black wood. It's now set up at our shack, but the black wood was stuck to the beam it's holding, so this is a bit of cardboard to show what it's like. But yes, they are classy trophies. But this is at the end of August. The contest is on. 24-hour contest. But it's a very relaxed contest, trying to encourage more women to get onto contesting. But men can enter also. And I'd encourage VK7s to get on, because I operate it most years, and also Catherine VK7GH or VK7C.
Yep.
So if you can help us along by coming on at the end of August, that is all to the good. So that's my story of contesting. It is important to get the right rhythm going for whichever the contest is. So the RD contest can be quite a relaxed contest, but if you go into the CQ Worldwide or WPX, you really need to be on your game and listen to how people are doing it. Otherwise you just get people cross at the other end. But speaking slowly gets you more contacts than speaking too quickly. So as Garry was saying, if you give your call sign clearly and phonetically, then it's better than trying to rattle it off, because it won't be heard. So that's my bit of wisdom. I shall pass the microphone on.
Anybody else for the
Now, just hold on to that, Paul, because Paul actually was the
Won the rookie.
Won the rookie award in the RD one. So
His first year in it, in fact.
Yes, well, I guess the one thing I can add is to have some persistent and good friends that will make.
It's called peer pressure.
Yes, but
Bully you into installing an antenna.
well, coming out and installing it
that's what I
for
meant.
you.
Yeah, well.
You know, and to your anybody listening in the U.S., I don't have an HOA, but think of your roof becoming a porcupine eyesight to your home ownership association overnight.
Oh, it wasn't
Quite a porcupine, no. But two nice tripod beam or tripod stands up there with a nice white stick, VHF, UHF. Anyway, so yes, I was very fortunate that year to with what was it? I think it was 290 contacts win the foundation for. Sorry, I've just gone blank. The RD contest, yes. And then I noticed the year after that, there were a lot more foundation members participating, and the high contact for that was a lot higher than it was. So I think, I had a
see what you started.
See what I exactly. but no, it was a lot of fun, and I did stay up to 24 hours for that, and it is a bit of a rush. The guys here do something. You guys do this thing called the band dance. And I guess I'll let somebody else mention that if it needs to be mentioned, because I couldn't really speak to that. But it's definitely kind of like ballroom dancing. If you have two left feet, you're never really going to quite get the cadence right, because where are you going now? Are you on HF? Are you on this channel? And then because I was a foundation, you add to that other bands that I can't operate on, and so they're skipping around on that. But that doesn't matter. I entered the contest being very relaxed about it. If I miss something, I miss something. You were talking about listening to other people. Well, I listened to the first 10 minutes of the contest to get myself back into that. Now, some of you guys would say that's the meat of the first 6 hours. Is like the first half an hour of the RD contest, so wasting that time. But it didn't really matter. So I quite enjoyed it. Unfortunately, I won't be able to make the contest this year. But yeah, I look forward to maybe even next year having another frequency to add to the mix. That'd be good.
Good.
Pass this on.
And in that first year when you jumped on, you said you waited the first half hour.
Well, about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Just yeah.
When you did jump on, everyone was like, "Whoa!" Like, like we haven't worked Paul yet.
They were and they weren't.
Fresh
Because of the band dance, people were kind of more concerned about getting on to their next rendezvous than they were about a new con. But as it rolled around, I did get that concentration that pile up in certain areas. Yeah. No, it was a lot of fun. Steve was really good. 700 was really good in my first year. You came back to me a lot.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. And that's the kind of thing that if you are seasoned and there's somebody new out there that I could say it's their first contest or whatever, keep them in your mind and hit them up. It'll really add to their confidence.
Correct.
Great.
Right. I'm Steve, 700. Now I've long time ago, because I've been doing the RD for probably longer than anybody in this room. Most people in this room, sorry. But before, I'm not going to. I'll leave Martin out of that one. He's been around forever. He's older than Keith Richards. Anyway.
That wasn't a compliment.
Before I ever did a contest, I used to think, why would I want to do a contest? It must be the most boring thing in the world. But I didn't realise that I was a competitive person.
We would never announced it.
No, but I wasn't then. I wasn't a competitive person. It was like, it just sort of woke something up in me. It's like, this is something I've got to keep doing. And like I've said, 10 or 15 years ago, you could win the RD in VK7 very easily. All it took was a bit of effort. And 24 hours of no sleep was all the effort you needed to do. You didn't have to make contacts every 2 seconds. You just needed to be awake the whole time. And so it wasn't difficult for me to get first in VK7 or to get a podium finish every year. That was easy. It's become more difficult in the last few years because there's at least 4 other people in this room here now that are competitive, and they're all trying to beat me, and they usually do. At least 4.
More than 4.
But, and so it's great. I love it, but it just makes it more difficult to get a winning score when you go, oh, geez, I cracked 1,000. I finally cracked 1,000 for the first time in a decade or whatever. Oh no, but 4 other people did better than me. It's like, okay. But the bottom line is participation equals points. If you want to be in the RD, and it doesn't matter whether you're competitive, but if you can make as many contacts as you can, especially on VHF and up, because they're all local contacts, you're helping the team. And then the team will win, and then those people that are really competitive have got an easy source of points as well to get their score up, where they can then become first, second, third and fourth in the country.
Steve, explain the team thing in the RD. That's something we.
Okay, in the RD you can form a team, and a team is basically any three people. That's it. There's no special rules about teams. It's just simply you say that to the contest organiser, which is VK4SN, you just email him and say, we three people want to form a team, and we've got a couple of teams in this room. So we've just got together, formed the team, and our scores are accumulated together, and then in the team contest you get basically, I can't read that from here. So
this is you winning.
Yeah, that's us. Yeah, so that's Lance, Justin, and myself. We formed a team called Twozer, and that Twozer is named after our individual callsign letters. And it's a winning team because we're all competitive and we have big scores. So as long as we're staying awake as long as we can for 24 hours, it's great.
And can I just point out the team, which is the cronies plus one, which is these two, and their score on that year that you won was like 1,000 or 1,500 points higher than any score. It was the highest.
Yeah, we were about
team score.
100 points short of 4,000.
It was just off the show.
Yeah. So, but winning.
Murray hadn't fallen asleep.
I knew that was coming.
But winning is fun.
67 unread messages on his phone.
It's like 4 a.m. in the morning, and we're like, Murray, where are you? Are you there, Murray? Murray. We're like, where's Murray? I don't know.
Anyway, VK7's come first for since 2016, is it?
2016.
Every year since 2016, we have no intention of giving that trophy up just yet. It's good fun. And one other tip is that you normally eat 3 meals in a day. Have a second breakfast at 2 a.m. There's your fourth meal, and that'll get you through the night.
The RD, just to mention, the RD is the way they calculate an RD score is participation rate.
This is for the state score.
This is for the state score. So it is the number of amateurs participating in that state divided by the total number of amateurs in that state.
Participation being defined by somebody who puts in a log.
Correct. And can I just say, there's a lot of people who participate in the RD contest and don't put in a log.
Field days.
But, so VK7 has an advantage because we have a small number of amateurs and we have a lot of people who actually participate. And so, but can I just say the ACT, I think, has realised. So we might have some competition.
I think one of the good things about the RD too, Justin, is that unlike a lot of other contests, you don't hand out sequential numbers.
Yeah.
So quite often, I've sat down and listened to some of the HF contests, and you think, oh, I might have a bit of a play or whatever, and you'll work some guy and you'll give him 59001, you'll give you 59640, you'll go, right, okay. This is going to end well. Whereas the RD, it's quite sort of low key. You don't know. So I could work you for the first time, and you could have a score of 1 or 600, and you don't know. So it sort of keeps you a bit sort of enthused because you know you might have the highest score, you don't know. You might have the lowest score, you don't know.
And Richard, I go out of my way if there is somebody on there with a 1. I make a comment and say, fantastic, great to have you in the contest, all that sort of stuff.
Thanks for coming on, you.
But the other end of the spectrum is, you have somebody on there who's got a score of like 60 or 62, or
Mr. Wardlaw.
David Wardlaw was 75 or 76. It was
It was an
like
amazing number last year.
So that's the number of years licensed.
People with scores like that always get congratulated from me.
Oh, well and truly.
So they're making a sterling effort.
Unless they're a club station and they've got I don't care how long
it's
you've
the
been
age
playing.
of the club.
Yeah, I don't care about that.
VK3
59100.
I think that's one of the nice things about the RD. So I know when you do the international contests, you just work stations and there is no rework either.
Yeah.
Whereas one of the nice things with the RD is you get to rework stations every 3 hours or whatever it is. And so there's a real collegial atmosphere, I think, on the air. Anyway.
And people will encourage one another and say, don't
Yeah,
forget,
yeah.
oh, we haven't worked on 80 metres. Oh, okay, let's go and work on 80 metres.
Yep. My tip is, if you know rudimentary CW, do CW as well, because A, you get double points. Actually, I was listening to a really interesting interview several weeks ago about the people that like used to run the CQ worldwide and stuff. And the reason that traditionally they were saying that CW gets double the number of points is because they figure that it takes twice as long to make a CW contact than it does a voice contact. So they figured that was
They're just old timers and they don't
that
like
was the
people to
evening
use
out.
phone.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, because in it's 3 hours, isn't it? Yeah, in the 3 hour window, like I sort of find you get partway through, like into the third hour, and then everything just dries up. But then if you've got another mode you can work, like there's a whole lot more to go on.
And there is CW, phone, and mixed.
Yeah.
And I've been in the mixed a couple of times, and there's been very few people in there who can actually do pretty well by going in the mix.
Yeah.
You know that. Because I've seen you in that mixed
I
many
always do
times.
I do it because I enjoy both modes.
But I know we were talking about the VHF and UHF. Like last RD, like I prioritised that less, and like because and I realised afterwards there was a definite hit to my score because you can really rack up the points quickly. But I find it an absolute zoo. Like, you know, everywhere else, if I'm calling
You're trying
CQ...
to say about us? Yeah,
exactly.
what are you saying?
Bear me out.
Monkeys on
But bear me out. Like, if I'm on HF, right, and I've got a frequency and I'm calling CQ, people are coming back to me, done. QRZ, next one, done. And I'm really churning through. Like, if you're doing that on 2 meters or 70 centimeters, like even if people are just coming through and I'm working people and there is no, I'm not just calling CQ to an empty, you know, air, like somebody else will hear a call sign they haven't worked and then they'll just jump in right over the top of you and then you lose it. And then
but also too, you tend to sort of sit in a group on 2 meters or 70 centimeters and you work that group of people and you want to work that last person, so you're sort of hanging around listening to them work that person and that person and that person. And you're sort of like, oh, I really need to go, oh, I really want to get him in the log, really want to get that call in the log, and you're sort of hanging around. After a while, you've got to make that call, and I've been guilty of doing that a few times,
But
where you've just got to like...
And so
you'll switch, that person what I found is they'll switch off, like you experienced guys. You know, you're there, you're going, I want to get in, you're getting hammered, you can't get in. You make the call, well, you're off on another band because you're hopping, so I missed you. You don't hear me. So I mean, that's not your fault or anything like that, but it's just one of the...
It's just a bit of a mindset thing where again, like Anne said, on HF, it's a continuous thing, you just don't stop. Even if you're hunting, you're hunting up and down calling. But on VHF, it can be a bit more like, yeah, here's this group of 10, I've worked 5, I'd really like to get those other 5, but you waste an inordinate amount of time getting those 5, where you can get those 5 on HF.
Yeah. And so what I figured
you sometimes hear me on 2 meters, especially when it's a bit of a zoo, and I will put out a call and I say listening 525, and I'll just move up 25.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's what I need to do, because what I do is, because once it gets taken off you, like it's so hard to get it back again, and then you just waste time waiting for the zoo to clear up so you can then work the stations you haven't worked. And so I just go blow it and head off to HF again.
That's why, I mean, not everyone has it, but that's where SSB can become an advantage, and especially if you've got a waterfall, because then everyone can just shift up or down a couple of kilohertz rather than up a channel or down a channel.
Yeah.
If you have a waterfall, even on FM, you can say, oh, there's someone up 25 kcs. I'm going to go up. Oh, someone's calling there. I'll work them while the other channel's going absolutely mad. So, yeah.
And that was the other thing I wanted to say, is if you have got voice keyer capability, like, use it, because I know when I'm looking at the waterfall, you can see on the waterfall someone calling CQ, because there are these perfectly distant little, like 50-50, it's listening, transmitting, and you can see it and you know that no one's working that guy, so you just jump there straight away, work him, and it's so easy.
There's a question on the chat from Sean, actually, next door. Can you do CW with the computer sending and receiving?
Sending, yes. Receiving, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there have been software written. I saw the first software to do a CW contest written in early 1990s.
Okay.
And the person who wrote it tried it out, proved it out, then destroyed it. He said, what's the point? What's the point of running a CW contest where you don't do any other work?
Yeah. That's like an FTA contest.
Yes,
Yeah.
but we won't go into that.
Yeah. I said it.
And there are some software around now that you can do receiving on it, but you won't do very well with it in a contest because
Not in a dog pile.
as soon as you get a pile up out of Europe, it's on CW, forget it. You're not going to sort that out with a computer.
But even so, like even the software that works well, it's got to be a pretty strong signal, and we don't get lots of strong signals down here. Like it'd be a waste of your time. If you want to do a computer mode, like there's RTTY, and RTTY gives you the same amount of points as CW, so work RTTY instead.
You just reminded me. You mentioned CW gets you 2 points, whereas a normal phone contact gets you 1 point. During 1 AM to 6 AM, all of that doubles. So you're actually getting 4 points for CW contacts.
And no, not even that. If you do
160 metres.
Yeah, if you get an antenna for 160 metres,
Yes.
like
And
whatever
CW
it is,
You get triple
right?
points.
No.
For between 1 and 6, you
doubles.
get triple points. So if you work 2 points, if you work a CW, you get 6.
No,
There you go.
You get more.
no, you get more because it doubles. So
double.
doubles for CW, doubles for the early hours of the morning, so it goes down to
It
4,
doubles to 160.
and then it doubles again because it's 160, so you get 8 points
So you get 8.
for a CW contact, and one in
I
the
think it's
on
triple.
160, which is the
It
right
keeps
time to be on
doubling.
160.
I think it's 26 points for voice,
160 metres is double, and in the morning it's triple, so it's 6 points on 160 metres phone.
Yes.
In the morning.
And it's 8
8
points.
CW will be 12 points.
And
Points.
23
We'll get Lars will
centimetres
be
and
on
above.
23 centimetres
Yes.
on CW to get the
Yeah, but who else will be?
modulate CW over FM, does that count?
Everyone's listening.
Yes, it does.
You might want a contest.
Well, if you don't spell it.
Yeah.
It's
why
more
it points
software
back up,
rather than
because
CW.
you work
It's not
Yeah.
carry away.
during the period from 1 to 5.
Because you're doing audio.
You
You
work
can do
on 20
CW on
centimetres,
23.
Yeah, I know.
9 centimetres,
You don't have to do it on FM.
I don't think he's got 23, that's what I meant.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I'd just like to make a comment on something Linda said too, because she was talking about using phonetics to be very clear. If you have one of those call signs like mine, which seems to just sound like mud when it comes off the tongue, have multiple versions of your phonetics ready. Because if somebody doesn't pick it up after the second go, they're not going to pick it up after the fifth or sixth go. You've got to change what you're saying.
Zanzibar, America, Struth.
I've never used the Struth ever.
The standard overseas one is Juliet Golf Delta, and they get confused, so then it's Japan, Germany, Denmark if they have to go for a
Yeah, that's
second go at it.
that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to say, but I forgot earlier, was my system usually, now that I've got a radio with waterfall, in the busy periods, particularly on HF, and the waterfall's lit up, I go into search and pounce mode, so you just go from one to the other, and then when it goes quiet, that's when you pick your spot and do CQ calls, and then you come back, and you usually get people coming back. But I think it was the RD last year, I'm not as 100% sure, but when I was up in Sydney, I was just never really got into it, the contest much, because of the location where we were. But when the RD used to start, say back in the 70s, the first 5, 10, 15 minutes, you just sat back and listened to this cacophony of people talking all over the top of each other, couldn't pull anybody out for at least about 10 or 15 minutes or more. And I noticed at the last RD, I'm pretty certain it was the RD, there was a guy somewhere in Australia doing a countdown, and it was like 5 minutes to go, 4 minutes, they got down to 30, 29, and there's a countdown, and then when the time went off, the noise started. Didn't last for very long,
Floodgates.
but there was people sitting there and this guy doing the countdown. I thought, well, that's getting back to the old days. So maybe there's a bit of an increase in contests now at the moment, and because certainly when it keyed up, there was a little bit of, on HF, there was a little bit of a pile up for a little while, but it wasn't anything like back years ago.
There was this band after the contest finished though. That's why.
Yeah. There was this point, like 5 minutes or 10 minutes before midday on Sunday, where I think people thought the contest was about to end, and 2 meters, like, was just incredible. Like, the number of people working and were interleaving between others, like, and there were 4 or 5 QSOs going, and so much for like phase lock loop is meant to pick the strongest signal and lock into that, and that's it. Like, there were 3 or 4 people talking over the top of each other on FM and working each other and making the contacts. It was just, I've never heard anything like that.
Look,
before.
you've only got to pick a few syllables of each thing to know who it is, because most of the people on FM you've already worked, you know what their voice sounds like. You don't need to get JGD out of his call sign. He has a distinctive voice. If you miss that because someone talks over the top of him and you just get one syllable, you know it's Garry, so you go back to it.
And taking Linda's point earlier, it's picking, not so much from that scenario, but if somebody gives you a report, you match that cadence. Because if they're just wanting the contact, you just give them the minimum detail. But if they're wanting to have a chat, okay, you have a chat. But you match what you're hearing.
Depends how competitive you're feeling.
No. Correct. But if you're feeling competitive, all you're going to do is, 5'9", and that's it. And you're going to...
So avoid Harry.
You're going to give it...
Absolutely.
Well, you want to chat. So it's... But you match that cadence, and I hear
There's
that
nothing
quite
more
often.
infuriating in the middle of a very fast-running pilot
Sounds like
to
a
have
how's
some
weather?
prick ask you, "Can I have your name for the log, please?" No. QRZ.
I don't think I've ever been that, Reg.
That's a funny name. How do you spell it?
Yeah.
And phonetics.
And
Oscar.
It's probably worth mentioning as well for beginners that, like, there's nothing wrong with just a straight 5'9" during contest. That's all that's expected. Like, there's, you're meant to give proper signal reports, but in contest it doesn't matter.
Proper signal report, you've got to log it.
Yeah, you still log it.
And in fact, VKCL enables you to switch that off. If you tick the box, all you're doing is the number of years.
Yeah.
I would like to submit, and I am sure Martin will agree with me here, that in a contest,
Everybody's fine.
5'9" is like the sync pulse at the beginning of your line of slow scan TV, right? It's what your brain goes, okay, start. What was that?
Yeah.
Right, and if it's something else, it just puts you completely right and completely off.
Yeah.
And it's like a prosign that your brain says, now, that 5'9", now I really need to listen hard for the next bit, and that's whatever the thing is, the age in this case, or whatever, years license. But the 5'9" is like a prosign. And I find that if people in RD just give me their number of years license, I have to ask for a repeat. Because I didn't get the prosign. So my brain said, what was that?
It messes with the cadence.
Yeah, the message is gone. What the hell was that?
So-
Especially now I'm getting older and
so-
I don't get things as fast as I used
So-
to.
You've got to give it in the right order too, because there's a lot of people in VKCL. It's the call sign, and then the number, and then whatever. And people will often give it to you
The wrong way
in the wrong way order, and you go, don't do that.
Oh, no,
Because like
field
I've got
day,
a tab across to
Richard.
that, and when I tab back, I've forgotten what you told me.
Richard, in field day, because you need the grid square.
And I'll give you the grid
square's
square
always
first, then the
last.
Yeah, it's like,
If I say
You can't put it in first, because if you then put in the signal report,
correct.
it disappears.
but if you tab back, then you've then forgotten what they told you. You have to be that person that goes, can you give me that detail again?
You can't actually answer them in the wrong order, it won't let you.
So this year I'm just going to be 31020 to everyone. 31020. 31020.
A big tip for people who are participating in a contest for the first time ever, the RD is the contest to do, and the reason is because there's lots of activity, and so it'll enthuse you.
And
if you go into a contest like the Harry Angel, for instance, doesn't have a lot of activity, you'll get bored. You get bored really quick. So you want to
goodness gracious, that's just. Yeah.
I'm just picking a name out of the air. It could be Ross Hole or whatever. It's just. But the RD is the contest that has lots of participation and lots of activity, and a newcomer will then have a good idea whether they like contesting or not. That's the contest to always do.
And you'll find a lot of people operating there, good operators who are happy to slow down.
Yeah.
Whereas if you do that to me in RD, I'll slow down and help.
Yeah.
But you do that to me or not now, but when it used to be in WPX, get out of here.
Well, that's the thing. There's most people who participate in the RD, that's the only contest they do all year.
Yeah.
That's it.
One of the things I was going to comment on, I spotted it today. I was looking at the plaques up on the wall to see how to get that thing down off the wall. And I spotted 3 plaques that I had up there, which were for, if I can find a bit of paper, no, I haven't got it there, winning Oceania. And in the WPX phone contest. And one was for 5 million points, one was for 3.5 million points, and one was for 1.2 million points. They all won Oceania phone, all band, high power. So they were different years, different conditions. So you can be going through a contest, and I think the one that was the 1 million one, I won on the Monday morning. Because you can go through a contest and the conditions are terrible. There's a blackout. You know, there's absolutely hardly any signals on the band at all. And you go through thinking, God, this is not going to work. But if you keep plugging away, eventually what happened was it all cleaned up about, I don't know, 5 o'clock in the morning on the Monday. And I was working about 140 an hour for all of the rest of the contest. And that gave me those points to get a win. Whereas an awful lot of people just gave up. You know, they gave up on the Saturday night when they made 10 QSOs in the first 12 hours or something, you know. And so never give up is the answer to that. Never give up.
And can I just say exactly the same thing. This is first, second and third in the RD. But I'll read out the numbers, the score. So I'll start with third. That was 2022 was 1,258 points. Now that's a huge score. If you have a look at the scores, that's third. Now that's when these 3 were being competitive. Taking up Steve's point.
And 1,200 points for me is like a dream. I've never done that many points.
Second place. So that was 2020. So this is COVID. That was 1,058 points. So nowhere near this. This is 200 points less. And then 2023. So last year, it was I got first, and it was 1108. So it's in the middle. So
I got a certificate, I think, that had 200 and something back in 95.
is the score on there for the teams? I don't think that was
2446.
Yeah. So now that was last year, and we got the teams first with 2446. These guys, it was up in 4,000. It was just short of
3,667.
There you go.
I won something, can't remember what contest it was, probably the RD. I think it was the RD not 100% sure, but it was 96 points, and I won A section with my own, for novice or whatever it was, and it was 96 points, and Dale VK7 Delta Golf came second with 95, and then after we worked it all out, that it was just before cut-off time, we had this contact, and it was the contact with Dale that got me to 96. Otherwise he would have won at 95, you know. So that was a 1 point thing, but that would have been back in, was when we were down here, so it would have been early 90s or late 80s. So
I think there was a VHF section then, wasn't there? VHF only.
This was HF, it would have been, I think. Oh, don't remember, I'd have to look up on the certificate. But I know it was 1 point, and that last contact we had got me the point that made me win, so we must have been neck and neck, so it must have been VHF or something back then. But so yeah, it's come a long way since that score, winning score at 96 to what scores you're getting now. So
Justin, just on the differing scores there, I think that sometimes you can be a bit lucky and conditions are good, and that pre-dawn period on 160 metres, if you have a good run on there, you can get a lot of points before 6 o'clock, and so then if that's dead, it makes 150 points difference on your total score.
Sure.
I mean, it's usually the same for everyone, but that's, the scores go up and down based on that.
Just knowing when to change band as well, you're banging away on like 14 megs, and then all of a sudden might go, I might try 40. Oh, holy crap!
Well, it's listening to what the bands are doing as well, and where people are going.
In the Oceania this year, I worked more stations on 15 metres than I've worked since I got my licence 26 years ago. Cumulative.
The first year that I worked 160 metres, I got a third of my points off 160 metres in the RD.
I was just looking at the 2022 results, and Paul VK5PAS, now he would be HF exclusively. He was 968 points from just HF.
And he's a machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
And we, because, Richard and I were separated by 20 points at the top, but we were 400 points in front of him. Like, that's a pretty good effort on HF. The majority of our points would come from VHF, UHF.
That's right.
And the higher bands as well.
And it's like, 23 centimetres, 13 centimetres, 9 centimetres, 3 centimetres.
But you just listen to him and you can see him on the band just pumping away on HF.
Everybody went, he was there.
He had a huge scene.
He's got a good location too. But
Where is he?
Oh, like the middle of Adelaide, middle of South Australia, something.
Country. He's down in southeast, towards southeast.
He's somewhere towards Murray Bridge. isn't he?
Yeah. Good outlook or something up there.
Yeah.
VK2PR is another one.
Yeah, no, that helps.
It's amazing too that a lot of the signals that you hear that have got the voice keys, you go back to them, and they've either got the gaps too short that they don't answer you, or they've just got
They're not
poop
listening.
in their ears and they can't hear. And you just hear lots of people call these people, and after 2 or 3 you go, oh, he's not hearing me.
Yeah.
Then you listen to our mate call him, and you can't hear him either. And these guys are just, their key is just going. It's like, how can you possibly expect someone to call in like 0.7 of a second? It's just.
Well, also I think they must have a lot of background noise, because I've done that before. I tried to call someone, and then I've listened to somebody else try and work them, and then I've worked that person over the top of them because neither of us could hear him. It's like while he was calling CQ.
Yeah, the use of the voice key here is something that people need to think about a lot, because a lot of them record it when their voice is still good.
We all do that.
And then towards the end of the contest, and so, the voice key goes, CQ, and you go back, VK7GM, and this strange garbled noise comes back at you, and you think, hell, is that the same station?
This isn't a multi-station. It's not another person.
Another one that used to annoy me was one station used to record their announcement, their CQ, by a professional DJ.
Okay.
So it was one of these beautiful, mellifluous voices, very smooth, but the guy himself had got a voice that was as rough as a bloody grinder. And it just, got me every time. So after a while I just gave up calling the bugger. Let him call me.
But there are people as well who've recorded their message, and then when they go to play it, like it's so overdriven.
Yeah.
And the problem is then
That's the other
when you
problem,
actually
yes.
get the person on, the voice is quite different, and so there's this dissonance, and it takes you a while to think like what's just happened, and then you sort of the people who've got overdriven.
It needs to be thought about. Don't just because it's in the radio, you know, you record it and press the button. It's not that simple.
Listen to it.
Listen
on a
to it
receiver.
yourself.
I spent, when I bought my 991, which is not a flash radio by any means, but it has a fair few EQ adjustments available on the audio. And I watched a couple of YouTube tutorials on how to set it up for contesting, and I spent a fair bit of time recording things and listening to them and trying to get that right. And I'm like, I don't know much about it, but that sounds okay to me. And I think that's also a worthwhile exercise if you've
Yes,
got
it
it.
is, absolutely.
Which is
Absolutely.
about the setup beforehand. Get some time, actually put aside some time to set it up, because the times that I've actually got up in on the podium is when I have spent the day before setting things up and I'm actually ready
To go, yes.
My usual style is I'm still tuning things and I'm still doing things as this thing starts.
Still running connectors in the window at 5
Correct.
minutes ago.
But look, sometimes that is a bit unavoidable. I mean, I used to live down in Goodwood, on the waterfront there, and I didn't have very much room, and the only way I could run a 160 metre antenna was to stretch a piece of wire across the bay to the other side. So it wasn't something I really wanted to leave up there all the time. So I would get one of my kids to assist me in the morning, and we would run the cable around the waterfront and pull it up over a tree and get it across the bay. For those think that's a dangerous thing to do, the bay was very shallow. You couldn't get a boat in there. You could nearly walk across it, but so there was no risk of anyone running into it. And there was the tree on public land that was a suitable prop at the other end. Yeah. So you can't always set up everything the night before.
So etiquette question for those who are not contesting yet. Is turning up while someone's at a field station or remote acceptable, or piss off, you're in the way?
On field days.
I think a number of us...
Field days visitors are always welcome. Yes.
Field day you turn up to the van, we'll make you coffee.
Well and truly.
That's only because you want to warm up though.
Oh no, we plenty would.
Probably not so much if you're having a crack at, say, the Oceania DX or something like that. Field day's always slow because there's less people, especially when you're in VHF, you quickly run out of people to talk to until you rework things. So, you know, you're listening, you're keying and you're listening for those long distance contacts and, you know, trying to watch the waterfall and stuff, but you're not super engaged in.
When you're up here doing the club station, there was someone up here that was just coming along to watch to get a feel for it. Was that you one year?
Oh yes,
Someone else?
yeah. No, I've had plenty of visitors up here when I've been doing that. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just sort of
I mean,
observe
if you're going to work from the club station, you need to take that on board. That's yeah.
It's actually quite a PR thing doing it on the mountain, because quite often people will stop by and say, you know, so what are you doing?
To be fair, most of the people that stop by have got a call sign. They're just from another state and they're going, wow, hi.
Cool. Okay, any last comments, questions?
Have fun.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Always
That
enjoy
is the bottom line.
VK7 great again.
And when is the next? What's the date of the next AD?
16th, 17th of August.
Right.
So...
You got 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Better get a leave for me.
Yep.
Yeah, now's the time to get your antennas together.
Leave requests are already in.
Oh yeah.
Yes, Hayden. Now's the time to get antennas sorted.
I'm working with a handicap this year. I'm on call, so I can't even guarantee being there.
Oh no.
How did you manage that?
I think we just...
We have a very strict on-call roster and I cannot alter it.
What if you got COVID?
Oh, I could do that, yeah.
You realise we're still broadcasting, guys.
Oh.
Yeah, dang.
Sorry.
That idea went out.
Blame you, Colin.
Have you got the
No, I had
plug?
COVID a couple of weeks ago.
All right. Okay, we'll wrap it up with that. Thank you very much. I hope you got something out of it. Our next forum next month. Next month I'll do a plug. The presentation night, which is the first Wednesday night, is Mike Jenner on his Life in the Lighthouse service. He has got a fantastic presentation together, including video and pictures, so it'll be off the show. And then the second Wednesday night, which is the next forum, is about DX chasing. So a little bit different, but this is about chasing that elusive DX contact, DXCC, and all the many other awards that you can actually go for, the QSLing, the side, the LOTW, etc., etc., etc. So that's what the next forum's about, on the second Wednesday of August. So yeah, thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you.
Cool.
There you go. Well done.